Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Best Damn Pod in the Land. I am your host and sports director, Brian Nelson, and with me I have...
The one, the only, about to contend in the official Men's B intramural flag football playoffs for Ohio State tonight. Hey, your assistant sports editor.
That's a shameless plug right there.
Andy Anders.
Wow, the one and only.
The one and only.
And you have the assistant sports director, Khalid. Hashi.
Hey, that's Hot Boy Hashi right there, baby.
Yes, sir. Boy.
And it's your boy Griffin Strom, the sports editor. We've got a lot of topics on hand for you guys today.
Yeah, Griff, you want to recap what we're going to talk about today?
We're going to go over the Maryland game. Not much of a game, but we're still going to talk about it. Mm-hmm. We're going to preview Rutgers a little bit, but not much of a game.
Not much to preview.
And the men's basketball team has a big matchup, a top 20 matchup with Villanova tomorrow, the number 10 team in the country. And we're going to get into that as well.
A lot to preview there. But let's start off with Maryland and get that recap out of the way. We all predicted it was going to be an absolute blowout. And so, of course, Ohio State blew our score predictions out of the water. Mr. Griffin Strom did take the victory by predicting you had 56 points, I think?
I think I said 56-7.
Yeah. So that was the highest, and he wins that. And, of course, Ohio State won 73-14.
Yep.
I think we all, as I said, we all expected it to be a blowout, but I don't know if we expected it to be that big of a blowout. I don't know, Andy, what's your take?
It didn't surprise me.
Yeah, it didn't surprise me.
It was we expected them to blow them out, right? Mm-hmm. But it was just how much they jumped on them and really how quickly they got off was really impressive. I think Maryland it took them 3 drives to get a first down, and even that was on a penalty. Ohio State had the onside kick in the first half.
Yes.
Which we'll be talking about in the film room here in a second. Shameless plug.
That is correct. We will.
But really it helps to have that play on film for future opponents because now everyone's going to have to defend that, and they're going to have their kick coverage all the way across the field. Don't know why Maryland didn't. They just left that hole wide open over there, and Blake Hobiel kicked it perfect. Chris Olave streaking down the sideline.
It was like a pass.
Ohio State in that first half didn't take their foot off the gas at all. And then in the second half, the backups came in, and Maryland didn't have any fight left in them, really, at that point, until the end when they were padding stats, I guess. But
the starters scored on every possession to start the game.
6 for 6.
6 for 6. 6 for 6 touchdowns.
That's crazy.
They didn't have to punt until the end of the third quarter.
Really looking at this was we've been talking about how we were waiting for Ohio State to really explode in the first quarter and actually be at 100% from the get-go, and they did that absolutely against Maryland. They scored 21 points in the first quarter.
The defense has been doing it all year, but the offense has.
Well, yeah, just like the offense, we wanted to see them get out and score and just remove any doubt.
Yeah.
Not that there was any doubt, but just in terms of...
They put up 21 points in the first, second, and fourth quarter.
Exactly, yes.
And yeah, guys, I've got some numbers here for you on first and second quarters for Ohio State this season. Entering the game after the first game of the season, because that was kind of the outlier in terms of first quarters. If you remember, Ohio State came out and scored 28 in the first quarter. Outside of that, Ohio State had been outscoring opponents 45-11 heading into the Maryland week, 45-11. In the second quarter, they had outscored teams 168-17. So that is just an astronomical difference there. And like Brian said, they did come out and just absolutely, from the get-go, those drives just looked so easy, They were only held to even third downs by the Maryland defense a few times.
Well, actually, they did finish 8 for 8 on third downs in the first half, which is insane, first of all. And they even had a couple 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9 situations they converted on passes. Really, that third down offense has been something that's been huge for Ohio State. I think the mix of Justin Fields' scramble ability combined with his throwing ability, anything 3rd and 15 or under, they seem to have a legitimate shot at converting. Not that they're in that situation very much because with their running game, they're constantly ahead of the chains. But, so looking at the stats now, they lead the country in third down conversion percentage. The second best team is Air Force at 53.7%. Then Alabama 53.1, Texas 52.6. Do you want to take a guess? So those are the next 3 best. What Ohio State's third down conversion percentage is? Someone who's not looking at my computer screen.
That would be me. So
say it again.
So the second best team in the country is 53.7. Third best is 53.2. Fourth best is 52.6, then 51.8. Like, it's really tight right there, 2 through 5. What is Ohio State's third down conversion percentage, do you
Probably
think?
70. Something crazy.
Not that high.
58.
Okay.
58 when the next best team is 53, and then no other team gets a percentage point of separation behind the next team. Ohio State is almost 5 percentage points ahead of the second best team in the country, which is Air Force. 64 for 110 on the year. Out of the top 10, they've faced third downs, I believe, the third fewest times. So not only are they getting in third downs less, they are converting them at a very high rate. And that's going to be important when you talk about the bigger games, the Penn States, the Michigans, the potential Big Ten college football playoffs that are on the docket here coming up.
Absolutely.
You guys want to hear some crazy stats? Let's take this in, okay?
Crazy.
Ohio State's backup quarterback, Chris Sheganoff, out threw both Maryland quarterbacks in total yards. Chugunov had 103, and Maryland as a team threw for 77 yards. Let's look at rushing. Ohio State had 4 running backs that had more rushing yards than Maryland's leading rusher, who was Javon Leake, with 55 total yards. And then at receiving, Ohio State had 6 wide receivers had more yards, total yards, in receiving than any Maryland receiver, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, I do want to highlight the running game specifically from Saturday's game. We've seen J.K. Dobbins and Master Teague do it the entire season, so there's no doubt. But to see Ohio State not only have good games from J.K. Dobbins, who really only played half the game, and Master Teague, who was a leading rusher with 111 yards. But then also see Marcus Crowley and Demario McCall just come out and pretty much garbage time, but still showcase some strength that we hadn't seen from them the entire season. Was really impressive.
With the 2 tutties.
Yeah, it was kind of a nice moment for Demario McCall there because, they did have Tony Alford saying ahead of the season that he thought Demario would be their number 2 at the time, just a little bit before the season started. And now he's the 4th string running back. And even in the carries he got earlier in the season, he wasn't busting any of those for big yardage or anything. So, and he just lost his starting punt returning job to Garrett Wilson.
Yeah.
So
He's been way better at it.
Yeah. So a bit of a redemptive moment to see McCall finally break free and make some big plays for Ohio State. And make 2 touchdowns,
Yeah, 2 touchdowns. And for perspective, he had 7 carries for 78 yards. So he averaged 11 yards per carry. And then Marcus Crowley was just a little worse with 8 carries for 82 yards and 1 touchdown, averaging 10 yards per carry.
4 different Ohio State running backs with at least 75 yards. The first time since 1975, the famous 4 horsemen backfield. Some of you Ohio State historians might know that. First time 4 different Ohio State players have rushed for 75 yards in a game since the 70s when Woody coached at Ohio State. And it was mainly just because they were able to play so long in the third and fourth quarter, and then Ohio State's backups were so dominant. Frankly, Ohio State could probably trot out their third team against Rutgers here soon based off what we saw on Saturday.
I said something similar where I said, if I were Ohio State coach, I would probably sit my starters out.
Just leave the starters at home.
Let Chris Chugunov get his first collegiate start.
Yes.
One final crazy stat, since we're on that. So we've talked about the dominance of Ohio State's running game, even through the backups. Master Teague at 699 yards would be the leading rusher on 9 of the 13 teams outside Ohio State in the Big Ten.
Wow.
That's crazy.
As Ohio State's backup.
That's what I would call a crazy stat.
Crazy stats.
You don't like my stat? Sorry.
Crazy
Your stat was
stats.
crazy as well.
A lot of crazy stats from Ohio State. Just crazy team. And we haven't even brought up how the defense played without Chase Young. They played there's people like Tyreek Smith,
Devon
Hamilton. They all really stepped up big.
Oh, yes. And you might have thought that Ohio State would have a harder time rushing the quarterback without Chase Young. Not the case. In fact, they had their season high in sacks without Chase Young on the field.
7.
And, with 7. And 5 different players with sacks as well. And you just kind of got to see them spread it out. Usually it's Chase Young making all those plays. Hey, man, with Chase Young out, some of those other guys got to shine a little bit, You got to see Zach Harrison, Chase Young's replacement. He got a sack. Tyreek Smith got 2 sacks. Devon Hamilton got 2 sacks. Tef Borland got a sack. Malik Harrison got. Who didn't have a sack in the game? You know what I'm saying?
Griffin Strom.
It was possibly could have recorded a sack had he lined up on that defensive front.
We're about to see Andy Anders get a sack in this flag football game.
Right, I am a pass rusher for my team.
Well, there you go. 3 sack performance by Andy Anders. The one and only Andy
I did have an
Anders.
8-sack performance in a game.
Okay, 9 sack performance.
Yeah, that was freshman year. We were
Listen.
playing in a different league that was not as good, but it was fun.
No excuses. 9 sack performance. I want to see it.
But anyway,
Only the folks at home want it.
this Devon Hamilton's 5th season for Ohio State. You know, a lot of times guys might get bogged down and having to wait for their turn at Ohio State because there is so much talent. You know, sometimes you just have to wait your turn. And, you know, staying that extra season at 5th year, and then you're seeing him make the most of that and really come alive in these past couple of weeks. He only had 1 sack coming into the Wisconsin game. Now he's got 3 sacks in the past 2 games from that tackle position, and he's been very impressive.
His strength and power coming off the ball is really what impresses me, defensive line-wise. Spoke to Robert Landers a couple weeks ago. I asked him the question, who has the quicker first step, you or Devon? Now, Robert said he did, which I would agree with, or BB, as he's referred to by a lot of people. But Devon's strength and power, he says, is what makes him really good as a D tackle. And his explosion off the line, whenever he gets into the body of an offensive lineman, whenever he closes the distance from point A to point B, right, he gets those 2 steps in the ground, and he's able to leverage you. He's so overpowering as a physical presence in there that he's able to really knife through a lot of blocks and cause a lot of disruption in the backfield, especially when teams are trying to run the ball downhill. It's huge. And then saw his capabilities as a pass rusher this past game. Man, sometimes you get a big guy like that, he gets under somebody. If you're not double-teaming him, because a lot of times that position is double-teamed. If he's not double-teamed, though, he's able to get interior pressure pretty well. And that's huge as well, because you talk about a quarterback can't step up against interior pressure like they can from a defensive end rush.
Yeah. And, you know, Devon Hamilton's arms, man, they're just tree trunks. I say it a lot because it's just something that jumps out to me when I, interviewing the players. This man his arms are like this big, I don't know if that gives him an advantage or not.
His arms could be my legs.
Yes, his arms are bigger than my legs for sure.
It's probably way more than me.
All right. Well, let's kind of shift focus. We can still talk about Maryland, but let's kind of bring the context into previewing the upcoming matchup against Rutgers. Not necessarily talk about with Rutgers because, no offense to Rutgers, they're not that great a team, and Ohio State, as we've said, can beat them probably with their 3rd string.
Watch us jinx Ohio State.
Yeah.
I think everyone's going to be if that's the case. It won't just be us. So for
Spread's
those of
only
you at
50.
home, a little behind-the-scenes action for the best damn pod in the land. We, for every episode, I write up the topics we're going to discuss on the board with some input from, we all talk about what we want to discuss, and I'll put a list of bullet point notes, usually 3 or 4 things we want to hit on for each thing, right? So for the Maryland recap, we had 3 or 4 things. For the Villanova preview, we have 3 or 4 things. Rutgers just has one thing written under it, and it's that they suck. When we say that Ohio State could trot their 3rd team out there and still probably win this game,
We mean it literally.
we mean it literally. Problem is, a lot of their 3rd teamers aren't going to be there this week because 70-man travel roster. I was discussing this with some other reporters earlier today. The fact that Ohio State is on the road is actually going to make this a bigger blowout because they won't be able to just throw in the walk-ons like they did against Maryland, who's a better team than Rutgers. So they're going to be mixing 2nd and 3rd string later in the game when they're up by 50, and it's going to be a slaughter.
Yeah. For context, Maryland beat Rutgers 48-7 earlier this season, and Ohio State just beat Maryland 73-14.
What's Rutgers' record?
2-7.
Yeah, it's not great.
Their only wins were against FCS Liberty and UMass, who is barely a D1 team, just became.
I mean, Rutgers is barely a Big Ten team.
Rutgers shouldn't be a Big Ten
Yeah.
team, but that's another
story.
that's
for
another
day.
topic.
That's a bonus podcast.
They
topic.
suck at everything. I'm
I was
sorry,
about to say,
Rutgers. Win
Rutgers
something.
sucks.
Win something, and then I'll start respecting you.
He sucks so bad.
Athletically. Academically, they're
Get
fine.
it off, Griff.
Even their communications department. We'll get back to this.
Oh my.
Oh, careful, they might watch this. I don't know, man. I don't know,
I don't have time to
man.
return my calls. I doubt that they're watching our podcast.
Please, let's be real. This podcast doesn't give many views.
But the spread.
Hey,
Whoa.
we have some loyal
Yes.
viewers.
Loyal
We
viewers.
have some.
My
We
mom-
love
We
you
need a new
all.
moderator
Each and
now.
every one of you.
Out in Nebraska, we've got a strong following. Let's
strong
go.
following. That's true.
Strong following.
Our roots run deep.
And a lot of guys on the flag football.
No, I don't think any of them watched
We
it.
have a big flag football viewer.
Well, listen, if you get a 9-sack performance, we're gonna get that following.
Fair enough. Rutgers is 126th in total offense. Let's run down the stats here.
100 what?
26th,
Out of
130. 128th in scoring.
Wah, wah.
They're 96.
I feel like we're talking too much trash on Rutgers right now. They don't deserve this.
No, they really don't. The Rutgers has kind of had.
I don't. Their players sitting. You know about that, right? Their best players sitting out,
Oh yeah.
taking the red shirt year. I'm sorry. I don't really have a ton of respect for players that do that. Every situation's different. Actually, I shouldn't assume other people's circumstances, but at the same time,
Just your
it's
competitive spirit.
I was born as a competitor. Cliche, blue collar. My dad worked in a paper mill for 20 years, and
coffee bread,
had
baby.
me work there for a couple summers as well. I am now in a very cushy journalism job. I'm sure he's very proud.
Love
Love you, Dad. But it's just like they have two of their best players, Raheem Blackshear and Artur Sikowski. The NCAA has the new rule where you can redshirt if you only play 4 games or less. Basically, after the 3rd game or 4th game of the season, they went to the coaching staff and said, we're sitting out the rest of the year and redshirting to preserve our eligibility. Now, that's perfectly within the rules of the game, and I understand the circumstances. But if that's happening with this team, I can't give them any respect. I don't think they've earned it. They're on an interim head coach. Their program's in shambles. They just fired, obviously, Chris Ash. So I'm sorry, I'm not going to act like Rutgers is anything of an opponent this week.
But once Jeff Hafley takes over,
Oh boy.
Looks like actually
put that email on us.
Shiano is kind of leading the
Shiano is.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
saw
search
that,
right
too.
now. And the last time Rutgers actually won 8 games in a season, because that's an accomplishment, Shiano was the coach there. So
Okay. There is one topic that we have not touched on that was pretty big news last week and could affect. It won't really affect Ohio State this week because we saw what happened against
Chase
Maryland. But Chase Young, yes.
Huh?
Chase Young? what happened?
I forgot.
oh, that's right, we missed the news because we were
Oh yeah, we
dared
were.
to sleep till 9:30.
How dare we?
how dare we?
Watch this back.
Anyway, that's an inside. That's an inside
All
joke.
bridges on this.
I
episode.
know.
We are.
Griffith's just going all out. Anyway, Chase Young did not play against Maryland. Andy, what was the reason why?
Chase Young has a potential
Just took a break. That's all,
NCAA.
bro.
He just took a break.
just chilling.
He just needed a rest, man. They don't need him against Maryland or Rutgers, or they'll probably.
It's like Ross and Rachel. He's just on a break right now.
Chase Young, in 2018, it was found for the Rose Bowl game, accepted a loan. The number is anywhere from 1 to 3,000 is what we've been hearing. What I've been hearing, anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000 to fly his girlfriend out to the Rose Bowl to watch him play. He paid back the loan in April. The loan was from he said it was from a family friend that he knew before coming to Ohio State, but they met the summer before he enrolled in the program. The NCAA, there's been similar situations in the past that usually would result in about a 1 or 2 game suspension. The only rule that he broke here, the rule that he's in violation of. So essentially, you're allowed to accept a loan from a person who's not an agent or a booster, which the sources right now are saying that it wasn't an agent or a booster. As long as you pay it back, right, because it's a loan, and it's not based off your athletic abilities. So he didn't violate any of that. What he did violate is that the relationship with the person under the NCAA rule has to have existed prior to your recruitment to the university. So Ohio State started recruiting Chase Young, when he was a sophomore, probably, junior. Definitely not the summer before. He was already signed at that point. He was already coming to Ohio State. So that part is the part he could be in violation of. But again, we've seen similar situations in the past. I believe there was Clinton Dix when he was at Alabama. Very, almost the exact same circumstances. It resulted in a 2-game suspension. Can't see anything more than 4, but I would expect 2 to 3. He's already served 1. Maryland was self-opposed by the university to start that clock. Mm-hmm. And he could be back this week. That's not out of the realm of possibility.
We don't know. He is practicing with the team.
He is. He continues to practice with the team. It's just that he can't play in the games pending the suspension ruling. As of right now, he's ruled out for Rutgers, and I would expect that to stand. But if obviously it only ends up being a 2-game suspension, he's back for Penn State, it really doesn't hurt the team that much. The only thing, it killed his Heisman chances. That was the main effect. Mm-hmm. It killed his Heisman chances. He needed those 2 games against Maryland and Rutgers to pad his stats, to stay relevant on the national scene, especially when Joe Burrow goes out and puts up 393 yards against Alabama and leads LSU to his first victory in forever.
If he wants to come back with a 6-sack performance against Penn State, maybe he could vault himself back into contention.
Yeah.
It was already a long shot as a defender anyway to win the Heisman.
He was up there it was him and Burrow before this all went down.
It was him and Burrow. He was up there, but now Burrow's kind of running away with it. As not that Burrow was undeserving. He's been
I think, year. Even if Chase Young was on the field against Maryland and was going to be on the field against Rutgers, this game that Joe Burrow just had would have made him the front runner anyway, and now this just compiles.
I would argue he was already the front runner. He just secured his position as the guy.
Essentially, it's his to lose now.
Yeah,
I would say. That's the main effect that the suspension news has on him. If it's only 2 games, of course, if he's out for Penn State, that affects the team more because now you're talking about a top 15, top 10 team. Although maybe they've been revealed to be not quite as much as we were expecting. How real is Minnesota kind of determines how real Penn State is at this point. Because obviously Penn State lost to Minnesota this past week. But yeah, that's the main effect on the team. Mm-hmm. And I said a lot.
Yeah, I know we had been thinking maybe we were going to hear something today at the press conference. But no, Ryan Day came out and right away the first thing he was asked about Chase Young, obviously. And he said that they don't have any updates. So if the news is coming this week about anything further down the line, then it did not happen today.
They expect it this week. Don't know.
Might they sneak it into a
depth
Friday
chart
depth
release?
Chart? They just might. So
listen, it worked one time. Why not do it again?
Oh yeah, the PR on that went over great.
Sweeping under the rug.
It was a fun thing to wake up to.
It was a fun thing to wake up to.
The missed calls, the voicemails.
The voicemails. Whoa.
Voicemails, texts, all of it.
All for like a 3-sentence brief, mind you.
3 graphs. No, that was. I had my ringer on. I thought it was my alarm, and then I looked at the time, and then I just that's not what time I had my alarm set to. One of the calls, and then I hung it up.
But anyways, Rutgers.
Rutgers is bad. They should feel bad.
And the spread right now is 55, and that's honestly being generous.
Yeah. Do we want to give score predictions, or is there anything more we want to talk about?
I
what
think
does Rutgers do well?
80 points to 0.
80 to 0.
80 to 0.
90. No, I will hold off on that because I honestly think they really might
just rest people.
Call the horses off a little bit more than they did this.
Even
past
if
week.
they do at halftime, I don't think they're going to call them off before halftime. Do you?
And let's be real. Even when they put in the backups, like the freshmen. Those guys don't care. They want to get their touchdowns in.
All right.
I think one thing Ryan Day has done has been
7.
Really just
he's not here to make friends.
Ramping up the intensity for this team.
Right. Every week they go in focused. Right. And
look at what they did against Maryland, an onside kick after you went up 21-0 in a game that was already won.
Yeah, he was saying, in the first half of games, why call off the dogs in the first half? Because you never know what could happen in the second half. You might as well go for broke in the first half. Mm-hmm. And then, if you're up so big that you have to take everybody out the start of the second, then so be it.
I have a question, though.
What's our policy on speculation in this podcast? Do we want to speculate on things?
Like what?
Like potential why the score was so big in the first half.
I mean, we can mention the rumors for that.
Who's snitching over there?
That have been floating around.
So there's rumors. None of this is confirmed, but there's a little bit of evidence that perhaps someone from Maryland's side leaked the Chase Young information, and that's why Ohio State smoked them so bad. Now, Ryan Day, in the press conference, was asked to address it directly, and he was very quick to vehemently deny it. His body language was very believable, especially for a first-year head coach. You'd think it wouldn't be that easy to just be like, no, that's not what we were doing. However, the evidence includes that Maryland may have known this. Maryland's running back coach was Chase Young's head coach in high school.
Whoa, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Maryland had a decommit from said high school at halftime of the Ohio State game, a 3-star offensive tackle. After the game, there was a video on Twitter, and this could be doctored, this could be any number of things, right? This is very speculative, very don't take this with a huge grain of salt. There was a video after the game. Keandre Jones was celebrating with Ohio State. He was a player who transferred from Ohio State to Maryland.
Marion Browning.
And after the game, they were all like hugging him, and he was like, "Go win the national championship!" And it was this really cool moment. But
Very wholesome.
as they were joking around with each other on the field, Keandre said to somebody in this video, this is what was heard. Keandre said to somebody, "Why'd y'all have to run the score up like that?" And someone said, "'Cause you snitched," meaning Maryland, not Keandre.
Mm-hmm.
So investigative.
So again, this is all very speculative. We don't have this on good intel at all.
Yeah.
But
And frankly, we're probably never going to know specifically the entire facts of the situation.
Right.
Even if this is true, there's no guarantee that's why Ohio State went so hard against Maryland. It could have been merely Ohio State wanted to avenge the close game to Maryland last year when they barely won in overtime 52-51.
Yeah.
Or they just wanted to play hard.
I might have the resolution, though.
What is it?
We set out to Maryland to find all the answers. Document our trials.
let's go. No, so
Back to Maryland, where
if
it
that is
all
the case, if
began.
Ohio State was actually trying to run up the score as revenge, which I actually don't think was the case, but could have been,
They didn't
then
need to,
it would
right?
mean a lower score against Rutgers than perhaps Maryland. All that being said, we were talking about score predictions before that. The fact that Ohio State can't take any worse than its mix of second and third teamers off the field because of the travel man roster is going to mean a higher score in this game because they'll be able to sustain longer in the second half. I have this one at 77-0.
That's what I was going to do. So
Ryan's always taking
Every
somebody
week.
else's score.
It's
Every
always
single
mine.
week.
It's always mine.
we have very similar thoughts, Andy. Okay, I'll go 73-0. They might get. I think Black Cobble will get like a field goal in there somewhere. Just for
I don't
fun.
think he touches the field.
Griffin, did you say yours already?
No,
I'm going 86-7.
All right.
So we're all around that range of.
70s to
What, you said
80s.
7?
Yeah.
You think they're going to score? I don't think they cross the 50-yard line.
They'll cross the 50.
I mean, anything could happen, you know, like
If Ohio State has as
fumble
many
by Gunnar
penalties
Hope.
as they had against Maryland, they'll definitely cross the 50-yard line. That was
Yeah.
that was surprising.
main
I
thing
don't
that
know.
Day said he wanted to clean up for this week, and Ohio State has actually been not nearly as penalized as they were last year.
Yeah.
They were like
Well,
toward the
last
top
game.
of the Big Ten.
they entered the game with the 11th fewest penalties in the country.
After being the most penalized team in the country,
Right.
In 2018.
But then this past game where they had more than 10 penalties, I believe.
Yeah.
Maybe 11.
And there was like that one Maryland drive that led to them scoring a touchdown where they just had like 3 huge penalties in a row.
No, there was 3 15-yarders in a
Yeah.
row.
Which was ridiculous.
Sorry for all the viewers who have to listen to this. I know you guys want to hear about Penn State and Michigan. Don't worry. We got one more week, and we'll get there.
I think we've had enough of the Maryland Rutgers fun. Let's talk about men's basketball. Villanova is tomorrow.
Yes.
Should be a very fun game. Top 20 matchup, as Griffin mentioned. And really, it's a very early test for a very young Ohio State team. It'll be very interesting to see whether they're able to match up to a very highly rated Villanova team.
Yes, Brian, and Villanova, of course, has won 2 of the past 4 national championships. And, you know, so a big thing going into the season, a big topic with Ohio State basketball was they have this this bolstered up non-conference schedule. They're playing Kentucky, they're playing North Carolina, they're playing Villanova, of course. And it really works diametrically to how they kind of organized their schedule last season. Last season, Ohio State won 12 of their first 13 games, and they got up to like number 13 in the country. And so they kind of had this false sense of security at the beginning of the season because they didn't play any ranked opponent until their 14th game. So they had all those wins. And then they got to that 14th game, which was against Michigan State, the number 8th team in the country at the time, and that started off a 5-game losing streak. So it was kind of like, you played all these teams, but they were kind of just empty wins,
There were some like moderately good teams in there.
Well, they played Syracuse and UCLA, but neither of them were ranked at the time.
Right.
And so this season, they've got the number 10 team in the country in the third game of this season. And what Chris Holtmann was talking about today in the press conference was last season he thought with a younger team, maybe the thought was to try to get them some confidence before going into league play. But then it ended up kind of backfiring because they didn't actually know how good they really were, and they hadn't faced a stiff opponent until so far into the season that they kind of just, I think they won like 6. They went 6-12 in the rest of the way once they got into ranked opponent play and stuff like that.
So, exactly.
Oh yeah.
I didn't have much. I didn't have much to say. I was just trying to segue into talking about this matchup.
I think. So what are we looking to see from Ohio State in this game? I think
Caleb go off.
I expect this is an early test for a team that is still growing, is still young. I think by the end of the year they could be a top 15 program, but I don't think they're there yet. I think this is probably going to be an early season loss for Ohio State. That would be my prediction.
I disagree.
Well, there's one thing that makes me feel like it is likely going to be a loss for Ohio State, and that's the fact that Andre Wesson is hurt and will be out for the game. That's
some key experience.
That's some key experience they're going to miss, and also just a key player that shores up that offense.
Mark my words, guys. This is DJ Carton's breakout game.
It's the third game of the season.
His breakout game.
I can see it.
I can see it.
The thing is, okay, Carton has really impressed me so far with his poise, because you talk about a freshman going. I mean, the last game he had 4 assists against 1 turnover. I watched him on these fast breaks, and he's able to pull up and find somebody. He's making veteran moves as a freshman. That is impressive, right? He's not making some of those early mistakes. But the rest of the team, I think Carton will show up. I think Caleb Wesson will show up.
I think Luther
Kyle Young's always going to give his all. No, Villanova just has a lot of returning pieces, a lot of skilled returning pieces. Very well coached, too. And very well coached. They're just going to be a little more together at this point of the year. Yeah. And I think that's going to have an impact on the outcome of the game. It's an early season game, and you never know what happens, because basketball is one of the more unpredictable sports, college basketball anyway. But I think this is going to be a very good learning experience. Win or lose for Ohio State, I think it's going to be a loss, though, just based on all the things I already mentioned.
Let me get into some Villanova stuff here, guys, because they have only played 1 game of the season against Army. They won by like 40 points. But so the biggest factor with this team, and Holtmann talked a lot about this today, is they're very big. It's the biggest team they've had in a while. Their average height is like 6'7", which is 2 inches taller than Ohio State's team average. And in the Army game, but they just got a lot of guys that are like 6'8", 6'9", including Jeremiah Robinson Earl, who was the 16th rated player in this year's class. And he had like 24 and 13.
A bucket.
Yeah, and he shot like 9 for 14 or something. They had several other forwards that scored. One of them had like 22. One of them had 18. So just a lot of scoring from those big guys, those front court players, and especially with Andre Wesson being out and him being a 6'6" wing player. With him being out and having a guy like Dwayne Washington coming in to fill his spot in the lineup, that's giving up 3 inches and like 30 pounds there. To have another guard on the floor as opposed to Wesson, and that's going to hurt them a lot because they were already a lot smaller than this team. And Holtmann even said that there will be times when Villanova will play five guys that might be 6'8" or above, and that's for a team that was very undersized last year. With some of the freshmen the Ohio State got this year, they got a little bit bigger, but those guys aren't going to see the court all that much. I wouldn't think. In terms of Alonzo Gaffney being 6'9", in terms of Diallo being 6'11", I don't think they're going to throw those guys to the wolves against Villanova unless they really have to.
Mm-hmm. Diallo might have to get in there, man.
I don't think they'll use him.
I don't think they will. He's so unpolished, but
yeah. That size is going to be one of the big factors in the game.
It kind of reminds me of like the Kentucky teams that had like Karl Anthony Towns, where they were just like huge and they just like overpowered everyone they faced. Maybe not in terms of technical aspect, but just in terms of sheer athletic ability, and Villanova is a team that will have the technical aspects.
Who
like,
knows?
locked down.
Small ball works sometimes. So
Small ball does work.
It does work on occasion.
It does work on occasion.
It works better for a team that can shoot well.
Shoot,
from the
I was about to say,
outside.
they're gonna have to
I
shoot.
think Ohio State has the potential to shoot well. From the outside,
Caleb's
though,
been
is the
hitting
thing.
his shots outside.
Well, listen. Ohio State has a lot of potential, but it's only the third game of the regular season. So
this is exactly my point.
like the potential may not be realized yet. We may see it later in the season when they maybe face off against a
they
team
gel
like
together.
Michigan State or Michigan. Maybe they'll come together. It'll come together from then, or maybe it'll come together tomorrow. But it's much more likely to come together much.
You guys
later.
think it's going to be like a blowout?
No,
I don't think it'll be a blowout.
No.
I think
Like-
Ohio State's a very good team.
they'll keep it within 10.
I think it'll be close. I just think
I could see it being 12 to 15.
I could see it being 12 to 15. It just depends on how.
I see a buzzer beater
hard-
bike.
This team has a lot of fight in them.
It depends.
Yeah, I was going to say.
DJ buzzer beater.
It depends on the amount of mistakes this young Ohio State team makes. If they make too many mistakes, that's going to give Villanova the chance to capitalize on them. And then if Villanova gets a sizable lead, if they get maybe like a 10-point lead, I don't think they're ever going to give that up.
Well, yeah, and Ohio State's been making a lot of mistakes in first halves of games and just playing much worse, honestly, in the first half than their second half, in the first two games at least, in terms of shooting percentages, in terms of turnovers, and just like the overall flow of the offense.
They'll just score in the first 7.5 minutes against Cincy. You can't have that.
Yeah.
Can't have that. I think it was like over 3 minutes against UMass Lowell even.
Yeah.
They need to come out stronger.
Yeah. And look at the lead that Cincinnati had at halftime. It wasn't that big, but against a team like Villanova, if you're going down that much at halftime after,
It'd be harder to.
it's near impossible to come back from that at this stage of the season. So
I'm excited though, so it'll be a fun game. It'll probably be
absolutely.
Be a great litmus test for a young team.
Yep.
And I do think Ohio State has the potential to win this game, but with Andre Wesson out, a lot needs to go their way. Like the Stars pretty much have to align perfectly, and they need to play high caliber basketball from start to finish with minimum mistakes. And Villanova has a greater margin for error to come away with a victory, and I think that's just going to be the deciding factor. So
Yes.
that's my take. Someone want to take things away from me.
Do we want to go to score predictions for the basketball game?
That's interesting. I'm okay with score predictions.
I'll say 76 to 72 Ohio State.
Oh,
State.
okay. Picking the upset.
Yep.
I'm going to go 71-63 Villanova.
I was going to say 75-62 Villanova.
I'll go 70-64 Villanova. I don't know if it's going to
very
be
close range. Yeah.
I like Ohio State to keep it close. So
Oh, can we talk about something? So I tweeted this out during Ohio State's season opener, and a lot of people on Twitter and a lot of my friends have other opinions, but I'm a strong believer that in college basketball, the shot clock needs to go down to NBA level of 24 seconds. What are your guys' takes on that?
I think 30 is perfect.
I think it's terrible.
My only pushback on it is that I kind of like in college basketball seeing a little more like offense ran, and I think if you took it to 24 with some of the college kids, like it would just change the game. I mean, I know it would make it more like the NBA game, which is where a lot of the guys are trying to go to.
Exactly.
But I kind of enjoy the difference in the game where like you're seeing more schemes ran, you're seeing more sets ran.
And that suits the college game better.
yeah, college basketball is much
you
more
can't
about
rely on
the
the skill like you can
like
in the NBA.
the way the team congeals and how they perform as a whole, whereas the NBA is much more of an individual based game.
That's
Not
the-
that it's not
a lot of
that it's a bad
teams-
not that it's a bad thing, but I do like the difference, and I think that's why.
That's the argument a lot of people make when I say this, but I dislike it because then they always say like, all right, well, you don't have the high scores like you have in the NBA. NBA's talent is different. It's like, well, no, they all come from college. You had Devin Booker, who's one of the top scorers in the NBA. Guess how many points he averaged in college?
Okay, you're giving me one example.
I'm just saying, like, a lot of guys are like that, though. They don't score.
Not really. That's the thing. Think of how. Okay, I want you to think of the NBA draft. Just think of the NBA draft. Okay, how many players in the NBA draft are there a year that actually make an impact on the league?
What do you mean, like right away?
Not even right away. Just in their career period. It's less than 30.
Right.
So you're telling me, let's assume, they're not, but let's assume those 30 guys are each on one different team in the NCAA. That's about 30 teams who have an NBA caliber scorer out of 300.
But you can't. Let's be real. A lot of the NBA draft guys are drafted based off of potential. It's not based off of their production.
Well, that's
but
just
I would
feeding into
rather-
my argument.
Yes, but I don't.
'Cause they're not there
I don't
yet.
agree with your argument. I'm saying I want to see them produce. I feel like these guys are capable of producing, but they're being held back of what they can actually do. The only guys in college I believe that actually have a huge impact are usually big men because in college game it's a lot of big men. They dominate. You have
Guards
Anthony
win
Davis.
the NCAA tournament,
Listen,
man.
they do in a way, but I feel like I'm talking about
Walker.
production. I feel like we see a lot of big men who have a lot more numbers coming out of the college game, where you see like Anthony Davis, Karl Anthony Towns, DeMarcus Cousins, all those guys. Why? Because the college game is slowed down. You feed it into the post and you just play slow, big boy basketball. Where in the next level, you see a lot of guards taking over because why? It's a faster pace.
Well,
And I feel like
but you're just talking about like your preference.
yeah, that's the whole thing I'm talking about.
Okay.
That's
But
fair.
The thing is, in NBA, you have the most skilled isolation guys in the entire world.
I
you
think
know?
people are just too
And in
afraid.
college, like I think
They don't have that.
It would
You know,
encourage
but
people that
there's-
aren't as talented to
there are
play that
so many
isolation
people.
ball.
There's
That
so
is
many teams
true.
that
That
wouldn't
is
be able
true.
to adjust to
But
it.
you know
Yeah.
what bothers me? In college game, it's so slowed down, and guys I feel like are so nervous about missing shots.
I think you're
because
overblowing how slowed
Yeah.
down it is. We're this early in the
Bro,
season.
oh
You
my-
tweeted that out during the first game,
I
right?
thought this for years.
Okay,
Let's not
that's
get
fair
this
then.
wrong.
Cliff's
That's
just
fair.
been waiting for a
I've
platform
been
to
waiting.
express this.
Didn't they already bring it down a little bit?
The 30.
Yeah, and I still
That
was like
that
no.
change I did like. I think 30 is the perfect happy medium. for
35
college.
was
Listen,
too
if you
much.
watch
35 was a
if you
little
watch
excessive.
college basketball, it's a lot of all right. Let's set up at half court. Pass, 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 pass. Shot clock is at 1 or 2 seconds, and they throw up a bad shot. Now we get back on defense, play zone. Like it's boring to watch. I like to see
Most teams are still going to do that if it's a
I-
24
and the
clock,
thing
but they're
is,
just going to
like,
have less
guys-
time too, and it's going to be an even
guys in
worse
college are so afraid of missing a shot because they know if they take a bad shot or miss a shot, guess what? Coach is bringing a sub off the bench to sub you out real quick. In the NBA, it's not like that. These guys have
because
green
they
light.
have the world's best talent.
Yes, but the teams like Kentucky and Duke, they have these best world talents on their
Okay,
team. These
yeah,
guys are
I'm not
green.
arguing that. That's been my whole thing this entire time.
In
You're
high school,
feeding
they-
into the talents of the big teams, and there's
Yes.
just going to be a big talent disparity.
I like
Yeah.
it. I like it.
But I feel like that's the beauty of college basketball because you look at March Madness where you have these
I
historic.
want to see more of Jimmer Fredette dropping 30 on teams.
But
okay?
you look at March Madness where you like have these historic upsets.
I'll be
like,
honest, though, March Madness is the only time where I actually like the game slowed at 30 seconds. It's just different, but
that's
during the regular
that's the
season,
crux of
it's-
college basketball.
Yeah, it is. But I'm saying during the regular season, it makes it boring.
I love this debate. Actually,
No,
It's a fun debate. I'm not saying you're
I was
wrong.
about to say, low-key, like we should a piece of content we should put out is some of the triggering debates that happen when Khalid brings up a certain point.
I'm not.
and Ryan and Andy get very triggered by it. And then
I'm not triggered at all. I'm just playing devil's advocate,
Staying
really,
very strong in my opinion, okay?
because I do think there are merits to the way the college basketball game is played.
I don't know. Let's just be real. Like the NBA's regular season is watchable. Like it's exciting when you have two top teams. playing.
I don't think the regular season college basketball is unwatchable. That's just my.
It's
think
not
it's effective.
unwatchable, but a lot of games are not watchable.
really, it's
There's
just coming
some.
down to a lot of personal preference here.
Yeah.
Right.
I think
That's all there really is at the end of the day.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm saying like, all right, NCAA, you have to make a huge thing. I'm just saying, in my personal opinion, I would like to see these guys ball out in college and put up big numbers because I feel like they're capable, but they're not being put in a place where they can showcase it. Because I don't know, you have a lot of,
I think a lot of them actually aren't that capable.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know if they're necessarily all that capable because you look at the amount of players that have an impact from the NBA draft, and a lot of them are very unpolished. I think the reason why college basketball is so team focused is because so many of these players are so green. They're not ready at that level
I'll
to
say-
step up.
I feel like the only reason why it's not is because a lot of these college scouts and college coaches like it slow down at 30 so they can see better like developmental like traits from these college players more than anything else. But
Is that a bad thing though?
I don't know. I just personally don't like it.
maybe a debate to continue at
Yeah.
another time.
Right.
Another time. Because we are out of time for today. Thank you very much for watching this episode. If you're still with us, hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back next week to recap the Rutgers game.
Leave a comment down below if you agree with me.
Yeah. Leave a comment if you agree with Khalid.
Have we gotten a comment on a video yet?
No.
Let's drop a poll.
I'm going to get my mom to comment.
Mom,
keep
can you
saying
leave
it
a
till
comment
somebody
on the
does it.
podcast?
If you made it to the end, comment, please.
Yes, let us know you're here.
wanna know.
We would love to hear.
What should we
from
call
you.
our audience? We should have.
We don't have a big enough audience to have a name for our audience, bro.
It's okay, bro. We gotta
Listen,
be
it's
one and
speaking into
onlys.
The one and
one
only.
and onlys. Hashtag the one and onlys down in the comment section.
Andy's no longer the one and only, the one and onlys. Anyway, that's all we have time for today. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great day. Goodbye.
Bang, bang.
Peace.
Peace.